I'm Susan Yelovich, and I'm the director of the Design Studies program, and this is Malgo Bakalars, whose name I just mispronounced.
No, you didn't.
Oh,
you actually
okay.
didn't.
Well, who is my partner in crime and the curator of the exhibition next door, which you haven't seen yet. It's called Far Away From Where. You must see during a break or over lunch. It's a very, I talked yesterday in my opening remarks about making the subject sensible. This is one of the things art and design does, makes things apparent to the senses, and Malgo's done that beautifully, as have her artists, who we thank as well. Do you want
Yes, I just want to say that we like to think about this show as a, let's say, a non-human co-participant or co-panelist of the symposium. So I think that it would be nice for you also to see the conversation going on between what you will hear and what you will be able to see. So please take this opportunity, especially that we are, I hate to say that we're deinstalling on Monday morning, so this is really the final, the close to final day to have a look at it. So please enjoy, and I'm more than happy to answer questions if you are interested in asking them. We also have, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but it's going to happen, Wojtek. We also have one of the artists who is in the show. He's sitting right there wearing a red jacket, Wojtek Wilczyk. Thank you for having come all the way from Poland and being with us today.
Thanks, Malgo. Now, I realize your programs say that this is supposed to be a recap of Friday sessions. The hubris of such an ambition, given how rich those sessions were, is almost defeating. But it's our responsibility, and now specifically my responsibility, to try to make home, to try to make sense of the vortex of thoughts and feelings that yesterday's speakers stirred up. Just as each day, each of us copes individually and collectively with how to take one more step forward, and another after that, and thousands after that, in the wake of our private memories and our shared memories. Memories of wounds that refuse to be submerged in manufactured spaces, like the memorial Alexandra Delano showed us in Mexico, or places like Geographies Square in Warsaw, which Adam Lipschitz laid bare. It seems that making home, which I take to mean settling into a place or space, whether for a few brief moments, months, or a lifetime, whether the space is wounded or not, making home must always be uncomfortable. Even moving into a different apartment under otherwise normal circumstances involves occupation and dispossession. But when acts of making home take place in wounded spaces, we become complicit in the designing of what Yemima Cohen called difficult futures. Designers who intervene in shaping such futures need to be cautious of performing what Virginia Tassinari called social greenwashing. And instead, as Adam reminded us, we should pay heed to Adorno's notion of reconciliation as the coexistence of differences. And perhaps, as Clive suggested, we might think of the work of design as prototyping ways of being, thinking and acting together with the express aim of producing stereotypes, in the best sense of the word, models that can be modeled. Of course, all our talk paled against the words and actions of Lina Sergi Attar, our keynote speaker, who spoke so movingly about the work of the Karam Foundation with Syrian children who at the moment must make home as refugees, make home in a state of leaving home, not knowing home, who are never guaranteed a homecoming in Syria. Against the backdrop of all our concerns about the necessity to live with our wounds and to avoid oversimplifying our responses to those wounds, Lina offered us another response. The children she works with focus solely on their futures as a way into a state not so very unlike Hannah Arendt's eudaimonia. They envision what might be. And this is the work of design, to open up possibilities and not foreclose them. And we're going to see some instances of that today. And we are going to start our day with our second conversation. Here we go. With Krzysztof Czyżewski, whose name I apologize for mispronouncing, and Elżbieta Matynia, a conversation between old friends. Krzysztof is primarily based in Poland, and Elżbieta, of course, is here, a professor in sociology at the New School for Social Research and founder of the Trans-Regional Center for Democratic Studies. Both are social activists in their own particular ways. Krzysztof in theater and Elżbieta, well, in theater. And I can say this because I've taught with her, and she is a superb performer. Superb, as well as an important chronicler of Polish theater as a critical dimension of performative democracy, which incidentally is the title of one of her books. I can't say I know Krzysztof works nearly as well or as much as I'd like, which is why we asked him to visit us here at the New School today to share his thoughts with Elżbieta on the possibilities of bridging in these fraught times. Please welcome Krzysztof and Elżbieta.
Good morning, everybody. I'm actually completely amazed that you are here. I'm also amazed that I'm here so early in the morning on Saturday, but it's amazing and it's a great honor to be here. We've been here yesterday afternoon and evening, and it's we want to thank both Susan and Małgo and the whole crew here to put both the exhibition but also this set of conversations together. We do live in an uncanny era, uncanny times, and we need to be together to figure things out. Today, in this conversation with Krzysztof, I would like us to get to have a sense of what people do in other parts of the world, which actually, though they terribly locally, it seems very locally placed, have a much larger, don't like really the word global, but what the hell, global reverberation. So Krzysztof Czyżewski, this is how you pronounce his name properly. Krzysztof Czyżewski. Krzysztof, both first and second and last name very difficult, frankly. So Krzysztof is often called everywhere else Chris. Krzysztof, and let me first explain a little bit of how I understand your work, your practice, and your ideas. Krzysztof often is introduced to the larger audiences as practitioner of ideas. I don't know whether you met any practitioner of ideas before, but here you have one. So let me explain how I understand your work, your practice, and your ideas to the audience who may actually not necessarily know much about you. Those who do know, please help us out later on in conversation, and you may share with us some of your thoughts or about reflections about this extraordinary place that Krzysztof created in Poland. So your story is both specific and local. You live on borderlands between Poland, you live and work and act between Poland, Lithuania, Belarus, and Ukraine. The border to Russia is only 25 miles away. The borders, as everywhere in Europe, have shifted over the years. You may know, you do know that there are no uncontestable borders in Europe, for that matter, probably nowhere. So you came from a place called Sejny. And it's a small town on the actual borderlands between the three nation states, Poland, Lithuania, and Belarus. And you arrived there at the time when the Berlin Wall was coming down. And you and a bunch of your friends, you decided to leave from a comfortable urban environment for the place that seemed to be far away from everywhere. Suddenly the action was not there. So you arrived to Sejny, a former shtetl, emptied of its Jewish population during the war and after the war. A small town of 5,000 people, and I don't know whether, I understand that now it's 6,000 people. I took a comfortable guess that perhaps at the time it was less. Sejny on northeastern territories of Poland. So you came there with a bunch of friends from theater, and it was 1989. In fact, when you arrived there with your friends, you embodied that ultimate other for the locals. They thought that you might be Roma, gypsies, that perhaps some Jews descended on them. Those were the distant and forgotten peripheries of the country, and you seemed to be kind of against common sense. But you stayed there, and in the course of the last 3 almost decades, you brought to light and developed not just a category, not just a concept of borderlands, but also a way of thinking about it, and you amassed a certain amount of insights and knowledge about the place. As this knowledge, though developed in a specific time and place, could, as you have discovered, this knowledge could be somewhat more generally applicable and be shared with others. And you discovered that working with your friends in Bosnia, in Caucasus, in Indonesia, in New York, you said that borderlands, places where people have lived together over time, but have had the borders shift under their feet very frequently, so that the borderlands are always pregnant with the possibility of breaking up, of revealing old and new splits, of creating fragmented, very atomized societies and even smaller cultural and political units, namely splinterlands. I'm kind of fascinated by this term, splinterlands. A friend from Washington just published a book, and we have had a conversation here at the New School about it. This is not a commercial. I just wanted to show you how it looks. It's a dystopian novel, tiny dystopian novel that captures the world of 2050, shattered into bits and pieces. Of course, European Union doesn't exist anymore in 2050. And the world, whatever was once one, pluribus unum, or tried to be one, just like with the EU, is no more. In this dystopian novel, Belgium is finally divided between Wallonia and Flandria. Gangs are fighting on the streets of Brussels, and the omnipresent physical violence has become a way of life. In fact, life is kind of unimaginable without it. As we, kind of sociologists, have known through careful study for a long time of violence, violence is a direct outcome of making boundaries, of boundary making. And the hate is a close relative to this process. Yet, you are saying, as you think about the world and humanity in those terms, that the broken fibers of our connective tissue, that's something that you came up with, and I love this, connective tissue. How is it in Polish? Tkanka łączna. A concept of great importance to both of, clearly also for me, that you came, so the splits and divisions could be healed. Connective tissue, even if broken, could be kind of healed and broken. The fibers can be reattached to each other, can be brought back together. My question is how, and we're coming back to that in a second. But today, especially today, when sharp divisions are emerging absolutely everywhere, and where divisiveness is being celebrated, when borders and boundaries and walls are becoming landmarks that one has to discover, protect, defend, and strengthen, when inflicting wounds seem to be an acceptable practice, I want us to talk about that knowledge, the knowledge that you have developed as I believe we will be needing it, we already do need it, the knowledge and skills that could help to heal the divisions and the wounds. So let's talk about bridges. Do bridges heal? Here you have a philosopher of bridging and bridges. Or do bridges take us simply over the stormy waters that caused the damage in the first place? We're just kind of passing over them.
Oh, thank you for...
And we will be much more specific later on with the question of
introduction.
business of bridge making, but just to start.
But first of all, when you go to the place we came in 1989, and you see everything is scattered into the pieces, no connection at all. Yes, people.
In 89.
89.
Yeah.
Yeah. people live
And
in small communities, minorities, Lithuanian rational believers, Roma gypsies, no Jews, but the heritage still remains there. So your feeling is that the body is sick of the community. Yeah, there's. I like this term connective tissue because it is very much about healthy life. Yes, you can have problems with different, komórkas, seats of your
Cells.
body, cells of your body, and you will survive. But when connective tissue is sick, poison, you simply die. There's no way to...
or stressed out. I don't know whether any of you are interested in taking a melt classes, but this is what all it is about. We are all surrounded. We are all covered. There is this coat of a very thin, sponge-like coat of what is called connective tissues, and a tissue if it's not hydrated and it dries out, it actually causes pain.
Right.
So it's extremely important to keep it rehydrated, and then we will live ever after, I guess.
So if you ask about the bridges, it's part of revitalizing connective tissue. There is no way to rebuild connective tissue without bridges, although bridges could be danger because enemies can come and use them. Yes, it could be danger escapes as you're saying. You can use bridge to escape from the place, yes, and go beyond the matter, yes, and the real life, which is at the spot, yes. But in fact, thinking about the bridge is very much thinking about the making place you are inhabiting warm, ready to sustain and to defend life, coexistence among the people, nature, and all you experience, all what is around you. We have in Polish language, or all Slavic languages, we have the same word for bridge, it is most. And in Polish we used to say mościć for something when you want to make a place.
When you want to make home.
Nasty, yes.
Nesting, but also padding.
Padding, yes.
Yeah.
Right. So, but it is at the same time connected to the bridge. Yes. So there is no padding space and place without taming neighborhood, without connecting what is around you. So you may say about thinking about security, that the bridge opens your world to unknown, dangerous situations. But in fact, only when you build the bridges around you, you can be saved, in fact, for long term. I can understand, and I experience many situations when people build fortress instead of bridge, yes, and there was time to survive and to build, fences, walls around you, to survive. But you understand that it is always for a short time, yeah, that you could never live for a long time like that, yes. So sooner or later, you start to think about the bridge. You have a war in Bosnia, in Mostar, for example, yes, and during this war, the bridge is fired out, yes, as a consequence of the war. Both, communities, Muslim on one bank of the river, Christian, Croat on the other, and the war is destroying the bridge, yes. In Mostar, in fact, they will...
And this is this extraordinary 13th century bridge, right, as you probably know. Which was bombed. Mm-hmm.
In Mostar, they will not say destroy. They are saying the bridge was killed because they use it's for them like a human being, the bridge. But the war is over, and the first thing people start to think is how to rebuild the bridge. In fact, yes, how to make life possible again. Yes, so you invest your life, more or less, in rebuilding. All work I do, it's about the rebuilding.
But there is also a builder. Even there was the builder once. Your interest in bridges began, I understand, or was somewhat augmented during the war, or splitting, fragmenting, collapsing of former Yugoslavia, right? And this is when you began to go to Bosnia. So there is this figure, which I know from some of your writings, of Neymar. You often refer to Neymar.
Right.
Who is Neymar?
It's an Ottoman word for architect of the space, the person who brings harmony into the space. In fact, this craft is based on harmonizing different contrasting things. And the art, the craft of Neymar is making composition from very different elements and build it as one structure, as one story, as one construction, architectural construction. In fact, very noble craft. They consider Neymar as the highest artist in the hierarchy of different artists. And Khairuddin, for example, who built the bridge in Mostar, was Neymar in that terms. So,
so master builder, master.
Yes,
master artist.
What it means, when coming to the context of a small town Sejny, what it means to be Neymar there in the space when, as I told you, everything is scattered into the pieces. People, don't trust each other. There's some traumatic memories from the past. There was no time and no space to discuss it, to share it, during communist time. So what Neymar could do, yes, and I would say, first, find a place for building. Very simple thing, very difficult, because the space is possessed by different ethnic groups, religions, and so on. There is our center.
It's owned, by them.
Yes. Our center, which is in this Jewish quarter, in the very center of the town, is in fact between Polish Cultural House and Lithuanian Cultural House. And there are separate schools, separate magazines, languages people have, But there is no what we call agora in that community that we can meet under one roof, all of us, and start a dialogue.
But this is what it is.
Yes, start to quarrel.
This is what you created, no?
And in fact, there was a Jewish abandoned quarter in a very center of it. And the question for us was, who you are. If you are Polish, you have a Polish cultural house. If you are Lithuanian, you have Lithuanian. Are you Jewish? No. So what is this borderlander? Yeah, this is another name I would say about Neymar, that he don't belong, to any of these particular groups. He should find, or she find herself, in between, embracing the whole space, embracing the whole community, embracing the whole context as much as possible. It is never, perfect, and always there is something lacking, But the work of Neymar is, is this gesture, not excluding. You don't belong. You are not part of this. Just live apart. Yes. Now the gesture of Neymar is, Can we talk together? I want to hear you. Yes, I'm interested in your behavior, or some religious customs, or let's do something together, or let's embrace. Oh, we forgot about that. Oh, and there is a whole community, the whole culture, like Jewish culture, forgotten. What we do with that? Yes. So all the time you have these questions and impulses to cross the borders you are limited to, because of your knowledge, of your belongings, and so on. All the time you are crossing, and so, in fact, another bridge, to unknown, to the other.
The bridges that you guys built, I just realized it now. I never thought about it before. Of course, are not built from bricks and stones and cement. But I remember being first time in Sejny, you told me that the synagogue, which was empty, was used for a long, long time as a storage place for cement. Right. Am I right? Yeah.
Right. And the problem is,
never thought about it.
When you go deeper, to the context and rediscovering Jewish past in that place, you become kind of, people just have this suspicion, again, are you Jewish? Or when our Jewish parents coming, what are you doing? You are not Jewish, yeah? Why that interest is for that? All the time you confront this, maybe if it is so beautifully, survived Jewish quarter, maybe let's do the museum of Jewish culture or history here. This concept of commemorizing in terms of, making museum, monuments, and so on was, and still is, part of our dialogue there. Yes?
Because this is something people know how to do.
Exactly. And they say, okay, it will be good for tourists, for everything. But our answer was, no, we want to have a living culture center. Yes, there, living culture, not something what belongs to the past, but living culture, in dialogue with the past, with these memories, with these voices. When you are in the synagogue, in yeshiva, in the former Hebrew gymnasium, 3 buildings we have now, you hear voices. You need to answer. So when we play music, jazz music, of modern music, hip hop, there's always reference to Jewish klezmer or country music. The same with the performance. When you establish, creating the spectacle, yes, you take these voices, you go into the dialogue with all what is around you, but you can do it in a modern form. You can experiment. You can quarrel. So the fight, the struggle, not to make the museum in the heritage. The place with rich heritage is something what we experience from very beginning.
And I have to say that you probably know how difficult it is those days actually not to do it, because there is a new regime in the world which is called memorialization. Memorialization regime is to build memorial museums, and the memorial museums ought to be built in a certain way. And there is even you can get I will use your toolkit how to do that. So to avoid it, it's really difficult. But that's perhaps a side remark. I wanted to go back to the question of bridges, and perhaps also to remind you that there is a very inspiring book that I was inspired by, and then it turned out we were very much into the same literature, which was Ivo Andrić's The Bridge on Drina. This is that kind of bridge that is both material and it serves all other spiritual, cultural, human functions which are not easily grasped by the image of the bridge. So there are bridges that are destroyed by wars or wear and tear. But you argue that there is also a different reason, and there are different reasons for the collapse of a bridge. Could you talk about that?
You see, the borderland is always the space for tensions and conflicts. So there is no option for solving conflicts or overcoming stereotypes. You will have all the time this. The question is this feeling that there is a teeny border, the narrow border, you feel it. When you cross it, the destruction will come. And the killing will come. And this is something, the borderlanders have an air on that. So you live in big tensions, you quarrel, you compete, you fight all the time, and it's kind of a creative potential, for life. But there is this moment and this red light, that you feel that it is when it goes too far, when the ideology is overcoming the pragmatic life. And when the future is disappearing, so that the people don't see the perspective to the future. Yes,
the path to the future. Yeah,
yes,
they live in the.
that when you take them out this perspective, they can become more irresponsible or radical in that. So in fact, because we do a lot about the memories and the past, but in fact, all our work as bridge builders is about this future perspective, about keeping this perspective alive for the people. Or let's invest in young generation. We can have these prejudices. We can have, our traumatic memories and so on. But what about tomorrow? Yes? And if there is belief and trust that the tomorrow is possible in good sense, we become more responsible, we become more to the connection and to the coexistence.
Now I understand why they've chosen you for this extraordinary award. I don't know what you guys know, but Krzysztof was awarded the Nayan Award in Israel. This is their Nobel, and he got it together with Pierre Nora and Friedlander, and then Saul Friedlander, and they got it for the past, but he did it for his work about the future.
But it was, if I may add, because it was for me, very interesting generational experience. So Saul Friedlander was, defending the memory of Holocaust and dealing with Germans mostly. Yeah. Pierre Nora was building national identity on this lieu de mémoire, in his concept.
French, yeah.
And my attitude as a bridge builder was, and I think it's also a generational voice I could have, a critical memory, the common memory, and good memories. So all what we need in our work is to start with critical memory. So if I am a Pole, yes, being on the borderland, and I would like to have any legitimacy for that work, I should start from very critical attitude to my Polish historical background, yes, and that's why we did. People were claiming why we are opening these windows with Jan Gross' book about the neighbors or other things, yeah,
the wounds,
yeah. But this is kind of necessary, because otherwise you don't have voice, you don't have credibility, in fact, for such kind of work. The common, this is something what I told you about embracing and building, working with the past and memory as a common story. So including different voices for the common story. When we build theater performance, it is like Greek would say koinos logos, the common story for the community. Yes, that each person, each inhabitant could feel at home, with her or his experiences, memories to that. And something which sounds very utopian, but which is very crucial on this painful borderlands, the good memory. That you may say that everybody after Holocaust, after Second World War, have only dark, memories from the past and towards the neighbors and everything. But this is partly true. Only partly. There is always a seed of goodwill, need or desire to make a gesture, but it's so difficult. I don't have language, we don't have rituals, we don't have spaces to make this gesture. Yeah, we don't help people to do it. Yeah, so it's deeply hidden inside, this desire to do some good thing, on to express a good memory. Also, when we came to Mostar again with our young children, from Sejny, spontaneously they ask people like we are sitting here, what you did? Did you make something good for your neighbor in the war, during the wartime? The first time they heard that question, because they were heroes, killing the others in the war. Yes, that's how the both sides making the story. Yes, that you find arguments to hate. Yes, and to be in struggle, but many things happened, good things, which were hidden.
Yeah, and your Sejny chronicles are actually about that. So there are various things that they are working on, and we'll go back in a second to the question of the bridge. But one of the things which was very, very important, I think, in the Borderland Center was to work with children and to do things with children. And because if children are involved, parents are involved. If parents are involved, grandparents are involved. So grandparents who didn't like each other, who didn't particularly stand each other, came to watch together the amazing performance called Sejny Chronicles. And suddenly they became proud. I mean, it's it changes the relationship in the community. Some of you perhaps saw the Sejny Chronicles were shown in La Mama several years ago, and also Krzysztof and children, because it's a fourth generation of children already doing those chronicles, based on their own research of what had happened in the community way back. And they show it here, but also work here with us at Lang College. So if you go to La Mama, you saw this huge, almost rectangular table. It's not rectangular, almost a huge table with clay model colored houses, streets of Sejny. Kind of this is what before the performance begin. You see that, and then children are coming. Children who earlier did research, went to each neighborhood, went to each house to ask about the history of people who lived there. So the child comes and picks up that clay-colored house the day before, built themselves, and they put it to that oven to make it colorful and so on, and it looks like in reality. And tells us a story about this house. And so many things are happening to. It became for me only clear when I went there that it's not for me. It's for the children. It's for the parents and grandparents, because actually this is their stories which are now reconnected. Are entering that connective tissue that you are talking about.
What you are saying, Elżbieta, I will pick up this component of time in the work of Neymar, that there is no simple past in that work. You can't say the work is done. Yeah, you can't say the bridge is built. In fact, in that work, it's permanent. It's open for long-term, daily cultivation. And this is a question for me as an artist, how I can do it, with my artistic workshop. When we came, Elżbieta said we were avant-garde theater, using to travel to the festivals all over the world. The decision to start be a serious Neymar was to stay at the space, at the place, now for almost 30 years, and keep it continuous as a process, develop, over time. The problem with bridging in the world we have is that we don't have time, and the culture don't have time. We have an event-oriented culture. You can't think about it as a bridge building. Yeah, in fact, so very interesting also for our artistic dimension of the work was that you should find completely new forms. We came to this ancient understanding of theater, which is not to just give a new show. Yeah? Show it. It is all about incarnation of the same story people know by heart, and you see new bodies, new generation incarnated in the story and in the new maybe context. But this is something what we are touching in our local community work also. So
for some time already, you are working on something which you called invisible bridge. Bridges, of course, are material, but the invisible bridge is not just a metaphor. correct? And when I read, and I did try to get myself ready for that conversation, so here is they published a little book which is called the Krasnodara Bridge, a Bridge Builder's Toolkit. So it's not just a metaphor, right? But it's not a physical bridge. At the same time, it's incredibly visceral. So it's something that I think Susan in the introduction today was trying to say happened here yesterday, you know? It was visceral, you know? It was in our it is in your bodies. It's in the bodies for people who are working with you, and it's kind of translates itself into something much more solid than just a metaphor.
And you, of course, you probably know this lovely book by Italo Calvino, Invisible Cities, which somehow I'm referring to, you know, these beautiful stories by Marco Polo to Kublai Khan about cities. And this is nothing about urbanistic structure, you know, or physical things, but it is everything about emotions, memories, you know, smells, very sensitive things. And because Mostar became, you know, a hero in our conversation, let's go back to Mostar. You know, when the bridge is rebuilt in Mostar, there was a huge effort of international community, and it's under protection of UNESCO World Heritage, you know, project. So it was rebuilt. You know, it was so big event that there was no place in audience for local people. They saw it in TV. Yeah. And the message was that the bridge is rebuilt, but you asking local people about that, the answer would be no. This is just physical bridge, but only a real one, an invisible bridge, is not rebuilt yet. Only a real one. Yes. So this understanding that bridge is about human relationships is something, you know, what happens among the people. And among us living, or also nature, or other parts of our life, is for the understanding of bridge crucial. And the question for me as a bridge builder in this world would be, could we invest as much knowledge, grants, funds we invest in material bridges, in these invisible bridges? I'm referring now to the discussion we had in Europe recently in Utrecht about struggling with this crisis of multicultural society and immigration and so on. And the response of European Union is to build a bridge from Africa to Europe. We'll have a huge event on the European power of science and technology. And
it's actually technologically possible, right?
Yes, we will show up. Yes. But the question, again, is the same amount of efforts, fundings, and so on, into building invisible bridges on the local communities level. That's a challenge, I think, for all of us.
I kind of completely understand that. The cover page of my book Performative Democracy is actually a bridge. The bridge with a kind of capia. Capia, it's a specific feature of those, or capilla, of the bridges built in Ottoman Empire. It was a bridge between two places over the river, but in the middle of the bridge was suddenly widened, and people could actually sit there. There were kind of so-called sofas made out of the stones, and there was a Turkish coffee. You could buy Turkish coffee from the bronze coffee maker, and so on and so on. So it was a kind of place to gather. So on that, this is my little obsession on that. The book was written during the Bush, late Bush administration here, the 43rd. And so on that bridge, I have a table, because I'm also obsessed with tables and I need to dialogue. So it was this table, and here the red states and the blue states were coming together to sit on the bridge. It wasn't material. It wasn't even possible, but it was this way of imagining it. But let me just ask you something which is, I think, very, very important for us here. You did say, or you did write somewhere that I saw that that the bridge ought to emerge from the inside of the community. Could you comment on that?
We had finally the idea to build our bridge after 25 years. And the first idea came to us was, let's invite a famous architect, big name. We will have a
Oh, you didn't have this idea. Don't tell us this. No, you never thought this idea.
Fantastic construction, you know, in our International Center of Dialogue, you know, in it. And very soon we realized that this is not about that, yes, that we should build it together with people living there together. And that's how we started this process of building invisible bridge not in Sejny, it's like 7 kilometers from Sejny. There is a manor house, once belonged to Czesław Miłosz family, our Nobel Prize winner, poet. And now we revitalize this place. It's another story, you know. Again, it was, you know, this problem, how to do not make a Miłosz museum in the manor house. And so it was, one photo is from pre-war time and another is from today, and you see the porch is red. Yeah, and,
Show it today, because it doesn't show here.
Okay. And it was a big controversy with all the specialists.
Because when you come there, it's so striking. Yeah. This porch kind of is straight in your eyes. I loved the idea, but it looked almost like, ooh, it's really red, you know? It's like a ultimate Chanel lipstick or something, very, very.
But the message is, it is not like it was, yes? And the message is a new life there, you know? The message is that we are, you know, crossing another boundaries inside. So, but the idea was to build near that space, our invisible bridge, which was rather work in earth and building a kind of amphitheater, a very hospitable space for acting together. And the idea of this, when you come to that space, you don't see the bridge. You know, it's very acoustic, very hospitable for different actions, but only once a year we created kind of mystery of the bridge, kind of a holiday of the bridge, when we invite all the people.
You come there in August.
To build together, you know, to participate in the process. And only when action happens in that space, the bridge becomes real, yes, for that mysterium. And people ask us immediately after that, let's make it like a calendar date that we have, you know, all holidays separates us. We have a different, you know, Lithuanian Independence Day, Polish, you know, Orthodox holidays, Catholic, and so on and so on. Only Bridge Day is common. There's no owner of the bridge.
So it's called the Bridge Day?
Yes.
In Sejny, or where? I mean, is it for the town?
Yes,
for the town.
Yes, but people coming from also different parts of the world to help. Yeah. Yes, and this year it will be based on mostly this building on music, and David Krakauer, in fact, from New York, is coming to work with us on.
You better go.
David Krakauer, the clarinetist from New York, and we invite also immigrants from Syria, from Ukraine, from other countries to be part of the orchestra also.
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
We are about to finish, yeah. No? Okay. Yeah.
Did you have a film to show?
No, we are not. We decided it's just we are not. Don't look at them. You know, images do not. We did say that something is happening there because of what people do, not what people produce necessarily. So so it is not metaphoric, and I think that Krzysztof can tell you about different kind of creative, thoughtful activities within this town which brought people from different places, but also strikingly in that film that I saw, you have children of all ages and you have people who are very, very, very old, and they are there and they are working together on, you know, figuring out which herbs, local herbs, are what kind of, so they share the knowledge that they would not have had before. Because there is this person who is known as a witch, and this person makes this tea, and now this becomes, in a way, they had gifts to the community, and it's owned by the community. So we will not show that work because it's not necessarily terribly visual, but it's but if you are interested, I'm sure that Krzysztof can give us the thing. But what? Go ahead.
Just to add what you are saying, another toolkit for bridge builder is, there is a way of building a bridge, like you throw the stone, you step on it, yes, and then you throw another one, and that's how the building process is going on. Very often we work with people, for example, from Israel, coming from this Arab Israeli borderlands, or from Colombia. They were part of, from the Peace Village. They were part of our village of bridge builders. So from Uganda.
So that village, which actually originally housed or was very near the FARC guerrilla army, extraordinary, kind of pregnant with conflict and pain place. Now it's a peaceful.
And of course, the first attitude is nothing is possible. Yes, you may fantasize about the bridges, but in our reality, there's no way to build it. But when you start to work, okay, nothing is possible, there's no solution and so on, but let's put the first stone. Yes, let's do something, first step. And the perspective is changing from that first, and again,
we can do it, huh?
Coming back to the time, yes. So the bridge building is very much about crumbs, you collect, very small details of life, which you are just implementing, in your construction. And so it's not about the huge ideologies, construction, and so on. That's why we also like to speak about building small centers of the world. When I'm asked today, what is your response to this crisis in the world, and we all feel that the Goliath is coming, this Browning wave of populist politicians and so on. So we feel that the Goliath is coming, but remember that, and this is very dangerous temptation, that we want to create another Goliath to struggle with him. Yeah. So David only can make it. He has a small number, small center, many of them, but not centralizing, not building a huge constructions and ideologies. Again, this is in connection also with this technique of bridging.
So the story of David and Goliath is being here a kind of a guiding thing. But Krzysztof, I wanted to ask you, because it's related actually to what you just talked about it, and I feel, and I'm quite sure that many of us here feel it in the audience, that we do live in not only in a difficult and uncanny times, but also that there is this element of fear, incredibly penetrating communities, and the part of the divisions is caused by that. You did write, and I'm myself worry about it, and I try to work on it, but you did write something very important when you said that the trust is born when fear has been overcome. Could you tell us how this could be translated from this kind of philosophical, existential statement into the actual reality of building the bridge?
First of all, you understand that the fear is a real thing, and the people have a right to feel fear, and there's nothing to stigmatize them because of that. So you understand that the fear is part of the borderland life, yes? So you respect the fear, yes? You try to understand it, and I think the fear is very much about the future. We told before about this perspective toward the future. That I'm coming from this part of the world when since centuries, we did not have a future. It's suddenly you discover it on the family life context. The decision in the family made, that since centuries, people were deported, emigrating, the borders were shifting, nothing was stable, nothing was, for long term. You could, only in the 19th century we had this concept close to the German Bildung, organic work, positive organicznikowska praca, yes? This attitude to life that you invest for the long term in developing your life in the community and so on. We lost it, yeah? And when I've met for the first time Czesław Miłosz. He came after 50 years of immigrant life in 1989 to that place, Krasnogruda.
Which was his summer house.
And
before then.
And when I started to share with him my dreams and so on, which were very, unrealistic and everything, he was very patient and very concrete. I was, surprised. I thought poet and so concrete, but this is a mystery of his poetry.
Realistic, yeah.
Yes. But his message to me was that please understand that maybe you are the first generation. You can invest your life in long term, in long durée, in your activity, and it changed everything. How to build the center, how to develop artistic programs. It really revolutionized everything what I had in my workshop before. And this is very much about the trust. So the trust is not shutting up the fear. Mm-hmm. The trust is, going through it, mm-hmm. and respecting it, and not stigmatizing people, just believing, because it was very easy to come to this small town and say, oh, you are anti-Semite, oh, you are nationalist, oh, you are xenophobe. Just give, who am I to say it? Yeah, in fact. So, just giving it. The work, of the bridge builder is based on you should trust the people. Yeah, you should invest in this trust. Also, it may kill you. No. Yes, in fact, you don't. But there is no other way, because only with them you can do it. Yeah, to have them apart, there is no way for building this bridge.
I wanted us to talk about two more things. We don't have time, but let me just tell you what I was hoping we can actually kind of touch on. In the first place, the seismic event, the major event, seismic event is June 23rd, when Britons, I think, consumed by fear and manipulated by politicians, decided to vote against, to leave the European Union. Event with significant implications, not just for UK. That was one thing I wanted to talk. The second thing I wanted to bring up, and maybe Krzysztof can say one sentence and be a kind of a closing sentence. In our world, the way we see it right now, we live it right now, many people think that the outcome of that referendum was a verdict against a fast-paced, globalized world where networks means more than places. That network replaces a place. So I wanted him to talk a little bit about the importance of place. I know that we don't have time, but do you want to have a sentence?
Yeah. I wouldn't exclude either network or places. They work together. But after all, I would say that thinking about being engaged in bridging in that world, and about the fear you've mentioned, I would even extend it to the understanding that people who experience destruction of the bridges and even participated in that destruction could be the best bridge builders. That, the ancient story, the myth, I laugh because it's the first, I think, the story in Western world about the broken bridges, Medea story, yes, of the princess from Colchis, yeah, the first other in the limes of our Western civilization. But I found a very interesting episode at the end of her life. She went to Babylon, and there was a big problem to build a bridge over Euphrates. Yes, and there was no engineer, no master ready to build a bridge. And they offered this work to Medea as the first bridge builders who
Women
but also experienced by broken bridge, yes, and the experience with all atrocities of meeting the other. So this is from my experience the real thing, you know, to the knowledge about, you know, the work I do with Holocaust survivors, you know, people who experience the most tragic situation in Balkan wars, you know, in Indonesia and so on. Why is so that the message from them is not build a fortress, but build a bridge?
So, if you are, as we are here, a suckers for hope, you should have been in this conversation. The only bad thing that happened is that you don't have the time to ask questions, Krzysztof. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.